Welcome to episode 15 of the State Line Fast Break podcast. I'm your host, Kasey Boone. Alongside me, as always, the great Josh Miller.
Here we go. Conference finals are here. We are down to Knicks, Pacers, Thunder, and T-Wolves, and we are here to break it all down. Let's get right into it.
We are going to start off with the game 7 that was highly anticipated but ended up being a dud as the Thunder walk all over the Nuggets in Oklahoma City, 125-93. The Nuggets had to pull their plug right as the fourth quarter was starting, as it was a 40-point game out of reach. Just pure domination. This was the Thunder team that we had been waiting to see this entire playoff run that I don't know that we had, besides that first game against Memphis, where they really fought, especially Claude on the defensive end, like just completely shut down everything the Nuggets threw at them. Just not a very good Murray game. Jokic only took 9 shots. Just they seemed wore down. The Nuggets had little to no energy, even coming off their longest break of the entire postseason, which they had 2 days off in between games. Obviously, the Aaron Gordon injury, thankfully, he was able to escape out of that with no further damage to that hamstring. But the Thunder have themselves a date with the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Final. Ant versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, two young up-and-coming stars. And this is the first time in the history of the National Basketball Association where there's going to be 7 different NBA champions in 7 different years. Just impressive win from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they've got themselves as the odds-on favorite to win the NBA championship this year.
Yep, we walked into these playoffs with the Thunder being either at number one favorite or just right behind Boston. And then right as Boston went down 3-1, the Thunder were heavy, overwhelmingly favorites. I mean, really a tremendous series and good learning experience for all these Thunder players. I mean, just reality sort of caught up with this Nuggets team. I mean, they fired their coach 3 games before the season ended. They had to win those 3 games just to get to that 4 seed, and ended up having a very hard fought series against the LA Clippers, which ended in the exact same fashion as the game 7 against the Clippers was a blowout, and it seemed it was just as bad as this one. And then they had a short turnaround to play this Oklahoma City Thunder, who won 60 plus games in the regular season this year. And I mean, it was a back and forth series. We saw Denver take game 1, and then with an Aaron Gordon buzzer beater, or not buzzer beater, but game winner towards the end, and then the Thunder came out, demolished Denver in the game 2. Game 3 was I believe that was a Denver win. And then Oklahoma City wins game 4. And then really where it starts to turn, or really where I think this series was won, was that game 5. This was Jokic had an up and down series. I mean, the defensive coverages that have been thrown at him are next. They're almost next to none that I have seen, and it's a little easier to be able to play an all-time great center and defend him in different ways, because if you're a guard, you're going to have the ball, you're going to be dribbling the ball much more. Well, I mean, Jokic is there was hundreds of different coverages he faced this playoff run, and it eventually caught up with him. Up and down series, like I said. Well, game 5, he explodes for over 40 points, and he got absolutely no help, as his entire team only made 1 field goal in that fourth quarter in a very close game 5, which swung the pendulum back towards Oklahoma City. Denver gets a huge win in a game 6 to force a game 7. And then towards the end of the game, you see Aaron Gordon, hamstring injury, and we thought there was no shot he was going to play in this game. News comes out he's playing, and he gave it all for his team. they got their tail whooped, but he went out there and he gained a lot of respect from a lot of people. I mean, to even go out there and grab 11 rebounds, shout out to him. And I mean, I got to give credit where credit's due. Shea Gilgeous Alexander with 35 points in a game seven. I understand the game was a blowout, but I mean, he showed up. He didn't start out the playoffs just great, but he started to hit his stride. Gave them timely shots when needed. But I got to just compliment the Sam Presti, just the entire makeup of this team. They can bring Shea Gilgeous out. Shea Gilgeous can get in foul trouble, and they seemingly don't miss a beat in very important moments. And I mean, I'm sure you'll want to talk about him a lot here. Is Alex Caruso was doing everything from guarding Jokic to hitting big threes in a game one or a game two that they needed. Um, we I sort of criticized that trade about mid-year once we saw how good Giddey was playing, and now all of a sudden Caruso really shows up big time when they needed it most. But I could go into hundreds of different things in this series that I noticed, but I'm going to give credit where credit is due to this Oklahoma City ball club and making it to this Western Conference Finals, and they're heavy favorites. Um, but we've seen this Timberwolves team be doubted and get through it. I think this is going to be a tremendous series again for this another great test for this Oklahoma City team, and they've had some issues with the Timberwolves this year. But I mean, what were your thoughts overall? I know you Oklahoma City's not your favorite ball club, but what impressed you the most in this series for Oklahoma City?
Yeah, you talked about it. The depth that Oklahoma City can go in and play with. I mean, we haven't even seen guys play important roles in the playoffs that were playing significant minutes in the regular season. We saw a Case and Wallace game today. He was all over the court there in that third quarter when they needed him most. Caruso, like you mentioned, I was I was kind of with you in terms of, I mean, you see how well Giddey's playing. He's going to get a big contract, I imagine. But this is why you trade for a guy like Alex Caruso. He's got championship pedigree. I mean, asterisks, but he won it with the Lakers when they won it in the bubble. He's played in big time playoff games, and you kind of saw that just kind of play out throughout this series. The fact that they had him guarding Nikola Jokic, and you made a good point before we hopped on air here. Like he got away with a lot of fouls, but that's part of the strategy when you go into a series like this. Guards are going to get more lenience when they're guarding big guys. They are going to be able to play a little bit more physical. They're going to be able to get lower and just kind of beat up. And that's what he did on Jokic for most of the series, was just playing super physical, would get low, would just nag at him the whole time, and they would just dive at him. Like the help defenders are diving, poking at the ball. They're sending two or three guys at Jokic, and I mean, especially in this game early, they were daring him to pass it to Aaron Gordon, daring Christian Brown to beat him, which he had some good plays early, but Porter gave you nothing in this game, didn't make a three. Murray was 6 for 16, 1 of 8 from beyond the arc. I mean, as a team, you shot 10 for 45 from three. So that was really what the Thunder did that really impressed me. Their ability to go low on Jokic and surround him from there. I mean, there was moments where they played Holmgren on him, but their most success was being able to play Caruso on him, which I thought was extremely impressive and something that we don't necessarily see a whole lot. And I think with the NBA starting, you see it a ton now. They're starting to transition to the two bigs, and that was a Joe Mazzulla thing. He kind of brought that back with playing Horford and Porzingis together. I mean, you see it with the Thunder right now. They're playing Hartenstein and Holmgren together. You're going to start seeing a lot of these two big man lineups again, and the ability to play a smaller defender on a big and have success is going to be key for the teams that don't necessarily want to play two bigs out there. But again, you just said it, the depth that this team's able to have right now, and that's going to catch up to them when they start facing the CBA, when they've got to make decisions. They've obviously got Jalen Williams' contract lined out. They're going to have to pay Chet Holmgren. They're going to have to make decisions on whether they can keep Hartenstein, Caruso, Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, who played some pretty key minutes in this series. So the good thing is they got guys like Topic who hasn't even played yet. AJ Mitchell's still on a cheap contract, and they've got a million draft picks to continue to reload this roster. I would think that the Thunder are going to continue to go down the road of they understand. Sam Presti's probably the smartest front office member in the league. He saw ahead of where the league was going, built this team with draft picks, built this team with young talent. They made timely. It's the thing with the CBA now is you have to make moves around the edges that seem minor but are going to play a big impact. Like Hartenstein's not a max contract player, but we've seen the impact that he can have. Caruso, not a max contract player, but these are guys that improve the floor of your team and allow your star you can play stars around them because these guys are at a discounted rate. Very impressive team building from the Thunder. We'll see with the CBA how they're going to be able to continue to build this. But like you said, they've got a date with a team and the Timberwolves who, I mean, we'll talk about the Pacers later on, but them and the Pacers right now to me are the two most impressive teams in the playoff. Just haven't skipped a beat, haven't really been challenged a ton up to this point. The Warriors obviously missing Steph Curry for all but the first half of game one. So that's going to be an extremely fascinating series. The Thunder are going to be worn down. Timberwolves are going to be fresh. Does that make a difference? And does Ant come to play in the Western Conference Finals this year like he did not do in last year's series?
Yeah, I'm gonna say a couple more thoughts on this Thunder roster before I get into the Timberwolves here. Isaiah Hartenstein, when I saw that they signed him in this past summer, I was just kicking myself, thinking, man, what a genius signing! Because if we rewind ourselves back 1 year ago, the Dallas Mavericks beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in 6 games, mainly because of Luka Doncic and Irving, but those bigs that um, Dallas had with Lively, Gafford, gave Oklahoma City some issues, and they go out and sign a player who isn't a star player by any means, but if you could probably place Isaiah Hartenstein on just about any ball club in the league, and he's going to be able to. He just finds little ways to impact the game, and I just want to say how impressed I am with him because he arguably he might have him and well they didn't even play big Jalen Williams in this game 7, which I'm surprised. He played throughout this entire series and had some pretty good moments. But Chet Holmgren, whenever it was Jokic backing down Chet Holmgren, it was a bucket every time. But not the case with Isaiah Hartenstein, who I just think he made a huge. I mean, all these guys made a difference, and they didn't even play. Isaiah Joe barely played in this series, and they'll probably go to him here in this next series. But all the guys you mentioned, you're right. Kasey and Wallace, just a tremendous draft pick. I believe he was from a Dallas draft pick a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Um, the year Dallas, I believe there was some sort of trade or something where Dallas had the opportunity to get Wallace. Well, he ends up in Oklahoma City. Shocker. That's going to continue to happen. But just not enough good things I can say about Isaiah Hartenstein, Wallace, and Caruso. On top of you already know you're going to get your 30 from Shea Gilgis and J Dub, or smaller Jalen Williams. He had a very up and down series. There's no doubt about it, but he showed up today, so we got to give him credit. But this Timberwolves team, man, they started out the season fairly rocky. I want to say they were sitting around 500 for the first 20, 30 games of the season. And, everyone questioned, including me, is this Randall trade going to work? Well, Julius Randle has had a tremendous postseason run up to this point, and he's going to have to continue that because Anthony Edwards, as much as he has flashed, and we gave him his flowers once that Lakers series was over, and rightfully so, he's had some up and down moments, even though they're dominating the series when you just look at the win count, as they won what they beat the Lakers in 5 and then they beat the Warriors in 5, correct? So, they've only played 10 games this postseason. Anthony Edwards has been up and down, but we're going to get two shooting guards who are at the top of this league between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards. And, it's going to be much more than that. But this is what's going to be able to sell. This is what's going to be able to, they're going to be able to market it fairly well. We got the first game here on Tuesday night. Those two, there's going to be a lot of conversations about, who's better, who's face of the league. Conversations around surround both of these guys. As Shai Gilgeous Alexander should probably, or he's going to be awarded the MVP any day now. And I think, Oklahoma City's heavy favorites going into this series, as rightfully so, just based on what they've done throughout this season. But what are some just early key matchups that you sort of can think about off the top of your head? Who matches up with Randall? Do you throw Hartenstein with him? Because I don't know how much Rudy Gobert can do in this series. We'll see. They're going to need him, that's for sure. The Timberwolves are going to need another Nick from last year. They're going to need Dante DiVincenzo to start hitting his threes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker to start hitting his threes. And if they do that, they can win this series. But it's going to come down to some of those guys. But, what do you feel about the Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander matchup, and then some other just key underrated matchups as far as Hartenstein and maybe Randall?
Yeah, it's going to be the battle of the stars. I mean, okay, who's going to perform when it matters? Who's going to perform in the clutch? There's going to be a lot of clutch games, which is when it's within 5 points under 5 minutes. Who's going to perform? Is it going to be Shea? Is it going to be Ant? That's going to be the big story. But you mentioned it. Julius Randle has been awesome this playoff run. And it's really kind of, he played 40 minutes the last 3 games in that series and was awesome. Steve Kerr said it in his press conference how Randle dominated that series. Draymond admitted that Randle outplayed him on his podcast. So that's how Randle plays. Can he give Ant the support when maybe Ant's going to be inconsistent at times? That's just how he's been for a majority of the year. And mainly these playoffs, there's going to be games where he's going to explode for 40 and then he might score 15 the next game. So he's got to have that sidekick and it's going to be Randle. How does the big thing we mentioned it with the two bigs? Can Naz Reid and Gobert match up to the production that the Thunder will get from Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren? Look, Rudy Gobert, I thought this may be one of his best playoff runs that he's had, at least in the last 5 or 6 years. Can he match up to what Chet Holmgren, what Isaiah Hartenstein brings for the Thunder? They're going to be, I would imagine that they're going to target Gobert as they should. Um, a fascinating matchup to me is going to be Jalen Williams versus Jaden McDaniels. That's going to be a really fun matchup. Jaden McDaniels has had a pretty solid, him and Naz Reid have been huge for the Timberwolves. They've had big games separate throughout this playoff run so far. It's going to be a very interesting game because I think unlike with what the Nuggets bring at you, where everything's going to be run through Jokic and Murray, I think the Timberwolves have a multitude of different ways that they can beat you. Now that it's not something that the Thunder maybe, because even with the Grizzlies, like it's very Jaw and Jaren Jackson centric. You got to hope that the guys around them, but we've seen it throughout this. Ant can attack you, Randall can attack you. They've gotten good minutes from Reed and McDaniels, so the Thunder are going to be challenged in multiple different ways. The role players can't have any games where they disappear on either side of this pendulum here, whether you're the Thunder or the Wolves. You got to have these guys that are surrounding Ant and Shea to step up when it matters. This one is, I'm confused on how I f really feel about this. I don't have a clear picture in my head. I think it's a pretty clean matchup. I think they do a lot of things very similar. Like both of these teams are going to want to get after you on defense. Um, the role players are going to be expected to play defense and shoot. And then it's going to come down to just which star, in my opinion, is going to come out on top and have a better series. And Ant has been primed for this. He's had more of these big playoff games than what we've seen out of Shea so far. So I think that would give them a little bit of an upper hand.
Um, the Julius Randle had 2 games in the Golden State series where he passed double digit assist, which I mean that's for a guy in Julius Randle, not necessarily even known for for his passing, just speaks to sort of how well rounded this Timberwolves team can be at times. And yeah, you're right. They're both of these teams start on defense. This is how they operate. They're two of the top 5 defensive teams in the NBA. It's sort of opposites. We got two of the top offenses playing each other in the Eastern Conference. We got two of the top defenses playing each other in the Western Conference, and but all the teams, both Oklahoma City and Minnesota are very good offensively too.
Yeah,
Don't get me
they
wrong.
all four teams left are all we're all top four and all top 10 in offensive rating this year. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
gonna be a lot of points, I would imagine.
yeah. There's no doubt. But when you have a guy in Jaden McDaniels, when you have a guy in Lou Dort, or you have a guy in, you have a lot of guys who take pride in the defensive end in this Western Conference finals matchup, which for me as a basketball fan, I'm always going to appreciate those guys who are strong. Who, when you have a team set up to where you can have 4 or 5 players have that exact mindset, whether if it's Caruso, Wallace, um, whoever, and then but Minnesota's got the same exact thing, and then you have a guy who I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, but you have Rudy Gobert down there, and they need to attack him. Chet Holmgren is going to have to try and get him in some foul trouble. Isaiah, they're going to need Isaiah Hartenstein to really start hitting that little floater shot. We'll see if Gobert gives it to him like Jokic did this past series. At times Jokic was just given he would just sort of dare him at times. He was deadly with it all year long, and then sort of didn't quite hit as many down the stretch of this past series. But there's a bunch of different things. But man, I really want to pick the Wolves. I'd like to see the Wolves win this series for a number of reasons. But man, I I I guess I'm gonna have to lean towards the sheer depth of Oklahoma City. It just seems in a way like the seas are parting for them based on how it's went. I mean, the top favorites as far as betting odds goes, I believe 4 of the top 5 are all knocked out of the playoffs now, other than Oklahoma City. So I'm gonna lean towards taking Oklahoma City in, I'll say 6, but it's going to be, when I say 6, it's a 6 that easily can go 7. Couple games really come down to the wire, and it's a very even fought 6-game matchup. But I wouldn't be surprised anyway here, and I'm curious to see. We're gonna have to put you on the spot here because you wanted to take the Wolves in round 1, then you backed off. So do you see Minnesota making it to the NBA Finals?
I think the Thunder are the more talented team. They've got home field or home court advantage here. But yeah, I'll do it. I'll take the Timberwolves. I think they're going to be a sleeping giant here. I think we're finally going to get the Anthony Edwards that we've been asking for. With the way Randall's playing right now, I feel very confident that this is going to be a team that can give them a run for their money. I'm going to pick it in 7. It just seems like a series that's going to go super deep. But I'm going to lean Timberwolves. I'm going to lean Anthony Edwards. They're going to be coming in. more rested, not coming off, which we could see the Thunder really benefiting from a series like what they just had with Denver. I mean, you are a team that the reason I doubted them was the playoff experience, the pedigree, the lack of playoff success under the current regime that they've got there. And so now they're battle tested. This was a team coming into the year that played in the least crunch time games of any team in the NBA. That's just mainly because how good they were blowing every team out. We finally saw them get tested, have to fight through some games late. We also saw them get a lot of blowout wins, so we don't really know exactly how they're going to fare down the stretch. But I'm going to take the Timberwolves just because I've been high on them this playoff run. I shouldn't have talked myself out of it in the first round, but look, I think the Thunder are the more talented team, and I very well could see your prediction coming right. But to back the Timberwolves, I'm going to go ahead and pick them to win this series. But in terms of Timberwolves, we've got to talk about what Karl Anthony Towns have done now in the Eastern Conference with the New York Knicks because he's got them in their first Eastern Conference final appearance since the 1999 Eastern Conference Finals, where they won, leading them to face off against the San Antonio Spurs, where they got crushed. And that was Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich's first NBA championship together. But the Knicks, an electric atmosphere in Madison Square Garden, they were going up 3-1 even before the Jason Tatum injury, but obviously the beneficiary of a crushing injury, a torn Achilles for Jason Tatum. It's going to likely lead him to be out most, if not all, of next year. And now with the meniscus tear that we talked about this with LeBron, but be like if you're gonna have these injuries, be like what Denver did. Go ahead and announce that these guys are hurt. Announce that Michael Porter Jr.'s hurt. Announce that Aaron Gordon's got this grade two hamstring strain. Don't be the team that, oh, we're going to put out this information after we lose, so we're pitied and said we fought through this injury, and it just puts an asterisk and just leaves a sour taste in your mouth. So I really respect what did. They, yes, all applaud to Jaylen Brown and playing through meniscus tear, if that's really what partial toward meniscus, if that's really what he had in his knee. But do what the Denver Nuggets did, announce it so we can actually believe you, and it puts more merit to it. And I think it just gives a lot more respect to the players out there if we know ahead of time that they are playing with this injury instead of after you lose and get embarrassed that we then throw out, oh, well, so and so was hurt and all the. So that just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Rant over with that. But the Knicks, they were going up 3-1 before the Tatum injury. They got slapped around a little bit there in that game five, but they come out and just boat raced. I mean, not even any sort of competitive fire out of the Boston Celtics in game six. Just an impressive performance from New York all around in the series. Very encouraged by the way that OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges have started to play. This is why you give up 5 first-round picks and a couple players to get Bridges. This is why you traded away quickly and RJ Barrett to get Anunoby. Anunoby's a guy that's been to an NBA Finals, has played in some big playoff games with the Raptors. He's seen it before. Bridges has gone to an NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns. He's seen it before. So you pair that along with Josh Hart, who obviously played in some playoff games with the Thunder. So or not the Thunder, but the Lakers. So
The Pelicans, probably.
and the Pelicans. So they've put experienced players around Brunson, who obviously with the Mavericks also played in some important games. They've done a very nice job of building one of the most talented starting fives, and the MVP of the series, without a doubt, goes to Mitchell Robinson. He was dominating the series to the point where we obviously saw the Kristaps illness and how it was affecting him, but it just made Kristaps completely unplayable. There's a clip going around, you can find it, But there's Mitchell Robinson with closed out on four different Celtics on one possession, preventing them from getting a shot out. Just the defensive effort, the intensity. He's been here the longest of all the core guys. He's seen 17 win seasons when the Knicks were trying to tank to get Zion Williamson. So he's been through a lot with the New York Knicks. Obviously, they stuck with him. He was hurt for a good portion of the year. They decided not to go out in the offseason and get a backup center. They moved on from Hartenstein. They decided not to go out at the trade deadline when Mitchell Robinson was working his way back in, get a backup center. They trusted him. It paid off in this series. The Knicks are so fun to watch, and the series that they're about to have is about to be one of the more fun playoff series we've seen in the last few years. But hats off to the Knicks for the way that they played against the Celtics here, the knockoff to the defending champs. And Madison Square Garden, New York City, watch out because the Knicks start getting on a roll and win a couple games, that city might burn down.
Yeah, man, I'm extremely impressed with this New York Knicks team, and I'll start with the Boston Celtics though. Just a crushing injury for Jason Tatum, who had was not having a very good series, but then looked to be having maybe his best game, playoff game ever in this game. What was it, game four? He gets hurt in. He has like over 40 points. He's got a couple blocks. He's got a couple steals. They're starting to lose the lead, and then all of a sudden he goes down, and you can just tell nowadays once somebody falls down and sort of feels the back of their lower calf slash their Achilles foot area, you could just sort of go ahead and pencil it in that.
This was an interesting one too, because a lot of times, and it was talked about a lot after the Tatum injury, like a lot of guys when they tear their Achilles, they don't really have the reaction that Tatum was very clearly in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when they have
Yeah,
these Achilles injuries, guys say they don't really know that it happens initially. I mean, they can feel something's wrong down in that area, but like the reaction that Tatum had was very abnormal, which is why a lot of people were at least optimistic that maybe it was something
yeah,
else initially. But yeah, when you're holding that high ankle calf area, you know what it is.
yeah. And look, I'm no doctor by any means, but I'll say I've done my fair share of research on this Achilles injury because I've been such a Aaron Rodgers fan over the years, and unfortunately, he tore his at the beginning of that season with the Jets. You even go back to the Kevin Durant. It what a lot of people describe this injury, whether for athletes or not, is you sort of feel like someone kicks you in the back of your foot, and then all of a sudden you turn around to look because you feel like you just got kicked, and that's when it just gives out. And I think Jason Tatum sort of, he looked like he was in pain. I think it was more just mental pain, knowing the road that he's about to happen. But anyways, you know our thoughts and prayers go out to him, and he really was. They probably wouldn't have won that game, but man, he was the best player on the floor in that game, but it was a little too late at that point. But and then Jaylen Brown, I'm with you on all the points. Come out and say, we've heard all for the past month or two, maybe three, that Jaylen Brown's got some sort of knee injury, but they never said whatever. And then all of a sudden, the second that the series is over, oh, he's got a meniscus. Well, I mean, if he really does have a meniscus, are they going to repair that? Are they going to clip that? Is he could miss time going into the next season? We'll see. But the Celtics' future is murky. We'll have to spend another episode talking about what they're going to have to do, which we're going to be eyes in on it. But let me talk about this Knicks team. I've been as high on Jalen Brunson as anybody, and he wasn't the only reason they won this series. They won for a multitude of reasons, as you've already pointed out. Robinson, Bridges, Anunoby, Hart, and even the guy who I'm not a fan of, Carl Anthony Towns, even had his fair share of moments in the series. Um, this team got swept by the Boston Celtics going into this series. I gave them zero shot of winning this series, and it all started with those two game one and game two, where huge leads, 20-point leads, just dissipated at the hands of this New York Knicks team as they come back in TD Garden and win game one and game two in the exact same fashion, with the Celtics sort of tripping over themselves, just missing so many threes. And there was a lot of conversations around that time. Is Joe Mazzulla, what's going on here? Why are they just doing this? Well, they've done it all year long. They live and die by the three. They're about the only championship team where you know, that is a team that lives and dies by the three that actually won a championship off of it. But they did that because they just had so many good 3-point shooters. Boy, their luck ran out in some ways. And, the Knicks, strong willed, Brunson led. You get to the clutch, you know what he's going to do. We saw it in the round one, we saw it in round two, and I think we're going to see it again in the Eastern Conference Finals. Uh, like I said, I was stunned, as everyone was, as I believe I picked the Celtics in like 5 games, and they're going home in round two in a game six. So Mitchell Robinson, yeah, he did have a great series where uh he had the he was getting hack a shacked early on in that series, and he sort of, but he found a way to make himself playable even given that. And we got to tip our caps to him for that, for working through that, as the entire arena was sort of making fun of him for he airballed a couple free throws in this series. I'm thinking, dude, come on, you're an NBA player. There's no reason why you should be airballing free throws. But his effort, determination, that's a thing that's just underrated in basketball. And we see it with these playoff teams. Like, talent is, obviously you got to get to the league to be, you have to be super talented to get to the league. But I love to see guys that aren't as talented make such strong impacts based on will, determination, grit, whatever it is. And Mitchell Robinson did that in this series.
Yeah, and I completely agree. The Knicks were just the grittier team in this series, and really you saw it in the first series as well against the Pistons. They hard fought games, and it was Jalen Brunson winning it for him in the end. And you definitely, I'll give you credit. You put Jalen Brunson in your top 10, but I've been barking up the Knicks tree for a majority of the regular season. I was extremely high on them, even with all the stats of they haven't beat so and so top team from whatever conference. I just believe in the talent. But the Knicks, I was preaching Jalen Brunson then. I am as big a fan of Mikal Bridges as you can be. I obviously the package that they had to give up from the Brooklyn Nets to get him was at a premium because it's the Knicks and Nets, those two teams from the same city. They don't make trades with each other, and so they had to pay a premium, probably more than what Bridges' actual value is. But he's been every bit worth it, at least in this Boston Celtics series, and we're going to see kind of how he performs um, in the next series. I mentioned it, the playoff experience that a lot of these guys have had, whether they're on other teams, but a big thing is it's Bridges, Brunson, Hart. I mean, these guys played together in college too. They've got a lot of experience. They know how to play off each other. And that definitely helps the Knicks. And Towns had a really good year, and I think he deserves a lot of credit. And I think I was one. You had a lot of mixed emotions specifically about that Towns Randall trade. I think when we talked about it last summer, I thought it was going to be pretty good for both teams just because I thought that Randall kind of fit better next to Gobert than what Towns did, and Towns gave the Knicks a true center that they had been lacking that could run the pick and roll that could kind of space the floor next to Brunson. It's worked out for both these teams exponentially better than what I could have envisioned, what you could have envisioned. I think for what most people, we've got a shot where these two teams are playing each other for an NBA championship in a couple weeks from now. And so this has been an incredibly fun playoff run from the Knicks. Shout out Tom Thibodeau, getting a lot of slack this year. I mean, people were wanting this guy canned at several points. He's gone out and won two impressive playoff series. He's been able to find some depth from some guys. McBride has given him some pretty good minutes. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, you look at now they're going to be stepping into the batter's box with the Indiana Pacers, who such a fun team to watch. Tyrese Halliburton is one of my favorite players in the league to watch. I don't see how anybody in the world can ever say that that man's overrated again. And obviously, Tyrese Halliburton's not the type of player that is going to be putting up 30, 40 points a game. He is what I described on the podcast not too long ago, that true old style Steve Nash type of player where he's a traditional point guard. He can fill it up, be a bucket getter, but he's going to get you 10, 15 assists a night. He's going to set guys up. And we've seen it in this playoff series. He's going to be clutch in clutch time. He's going to make big shots. He's going to get to the rim on Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best defenders the league has seen the last 10 years. And so this series I'm extremely intrigued by. The Pacers, just like the Knicks, have made key trades that have kind of put their team in position to get to this point now, back-to-back conference finals for them. The Siakam trade, both these teams being the beneficiary of the Raptors who have kind of blown it up. Anunoby to the Knicks, Siakam to the Pacers. Neesmith is a guy that the Pacers have found a diamond in the rough. Obi Toppin, who they got from the New York Knicks, is going to play a big role in the series. And then Andrew Nimhard, likely going to be the primary Jalen Brunson defender. He got torched by Brunson last year in the playoffs, but I think he learned from that series. He's had a great playoffs. He just rises when the games matter most. He's going to be huge in this series. And then I'm very fascinated by the Miles Turner versus Cat matchup. Obviously, I don't think that we're going to see them probably guarding each other very often. I think the Pacers might implore the strategy of the Celtics. And really, what was happening to Jokic, they're going to throw probably a smaller guy on Cat because he wants to play out in space more, which allows them to use Turner likely guarding Josh Hart. So he can kind of sit down in the paint and be a rim protector on the back end, which is going to be very interesting to see how Rick Carlisle decides to kind of match these guys up defensively. But I think this has the potential to be one of the most exciting playoff series we've seen in the NBA in quite some time. It's an old rivalry renewed. It's the last ever TNT series. We're going to see Reggie Miller on the call in the Garden. Not only is the announcer going to get booed, the team's going to be getting booed. He's going to be back in Gainbridge Fieldhouse calling Pacers games. This series has all the makings to be an all-time exciting playoff series. Two great point guards, two great rosters. I am looking forward to the series maybe more than any playoff series I've gotten a chance to watch in recent memory.
It brings tear to my eyes to say that this will be the last TNT broadcasted series. We we've discussed that on past episodes, but anyways, I've doubted this Pacers team time and time and time again, and they continue to make me regret it. And shout out to them for that. They just they just have so many guys who some guys aren't going to show up. Tyrese Halliburton, he's I'd say the reason why people were saying he's overrated, which he has obviously shown he's nowhere near the most overrated player in the league. But the reason people say that is, some people are saying, he's superstar, and then he has a game, even in this series, the one game that they lost, he had a 5 point game in. You know, every once in a while he will disappear like that, but I mean that's okay to do when you're winning in 5 games. So uh Rick Carlisle, just a tremendous job this year. Um I think it's a pretty hard job when you have that many guys that you have to sort of shuffle through. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. And he's won the championship with Dallas back, in the 2011 year. So he's a champion, and this hire has really worked out for Indiana, and we're getting a rematch from last year, the round two. Knicks Pacers went 7 games, and it had all the makings of all the series, and then it sort of another dud in a game 7 as the Knicks were just beaten to a drum as far as injuries go. So I'm hoping everyone stays healthy on both sides here. You know, it's we've seen some devastating injuries, which they're going to happen every year. These guys are playing so hard. I mean, this sport is so much different in the playoffs. If we're going to have injuries, that's going to happen. But I mean, if you're Brunson, if you're Hart, if you're OG, don't you have to have a little sour taste in your mouth knowing that this team sent you home in a game 7 last year on your home floor? The Knicks are going to get home court here. They're going to get to play game 1 and game 2, and I mean, they haven't been to a conference finals and I don't know how long. And the Pacers are here for back-to-back years, which no one sort of picked them to do. And guys like Nimhart who just continue to show up defensively, hit big shots. Neesmith, same thing. He's going to hit big threes. He's going to make defensive plays. I mean, you could just go down the list. You got McConnell who's going to come in and give them energy every single game. You got Miles Turner who can impact the game in so many different ways. And then Pascal Siakam, a very interesting player. You sort of just you never really talk about him when it comes to stars or superstars or stuff like that. But if you just look at what this guy does year in, year out, he's a very solid player. He's made multiple All-Star teams. He's won a championship. I just want to say people should appreciate what Pascal Siakam has done in his NBA career. Very underrated or underappreciated player who's going to get a chance to get back to the NBA Finals. Like I said, I don't know why I continue to doubt this team over and over again. And I'm almost to the point where I just want to fix my mistakes in the past and pick them in this conference finals. Um, Man, it's really, this one's much harder for me to pick than even the Western Conference Finals. Although I think both can arguably be coin flip picks. I just I don't know how the Pacers get it done. I just think somehow they find a way, but man, it's going to take a couple blowout wins because the NBA's most clutch player is sitting on that Knicks team with home court advantage, with the whole world sort of rooting for this Knicks team in a way because they haven't been to the finals in so long. Um, the NBA, maybe the NBA is even going to be rooting for it in a way to get this big market team back to prominence. But Indiana's just been a dream crusher for the past 2 seasons, and I'm not going to do it. I am not going to pick against them again. Give me the Pacers somehow, some way to win back-to-back years against this Knicks team in a game 7 in the Garden.
Wow, he went for it. Didn't think you were going to go for it, but uh, I'm with you. This is a very tough one to pick. My head tells me one thing, my heart tells me another thing. But just to the Pacers, they're going to need big time performances out of Neesmith, Nimhard. What are they going to get from Benedict Mathurin? We have not seen him perform super great throughout this playoff run for them. And obviously, like you mentioned, the injuries really piled up for the Cavs. That's another team that there's a lot of question marks going into the offseason about what that roster is going to be moving forward. Um, Obviously, a very talented roster to win as many games as they did in the regular season, banged up in the postseason. People are questioning Garland whether he could be out there or not. Mobley obviously missed a game. Hunter missed some games. Um, That's a very talented roster. Did they sit on their heels, stand pat, and hope that this team can repeat it being healthy next year? Do they go out and make a move? But the Pacers, even without that, I picked the Pacers to win that series. I thought they just flat out outplayed them, even the games that they were healthy. Donovan Mitchell had a very good series, but he was inefficient. He had to really carry the load in so many different ways. Had to take a ton of shots. Really, their only reliable offensive threat. A guy we talked about that had earned himself a lot of money until that series, Ty Jerome, just kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
Um,
he cost himself. He had it, and then now he's not. That contract probably won't be quite as hefty.
he earned a ton of money and then it just kind of disappeared in a heartbeat. But the Pacers, I think, have been the most impressive team. I reluctantly switched my pick, just like the Wolves in the series they had against the Bucks. Just I thought the Bucks, with the way they're playing down the stretch and the way Giannis was just unbelievable. I thought that that was going to be. I don't know why I talked myself out of it. I knew the Pacers were the better team, but I picked them last series. But I will not be picking them this series. I'm going to go with my heart. My heart is with the Knicks. I want to see New York City burn to the ground for a multitude of different reasons, but just of how electric that fan base is. A lot of people do not like that fan base, but the NBA is so fun. You got the Knicks fans flooding the streets of New York City. They're chirping at Brian Windhorst after a game, after he was on the Hoop Collective podcast talking after the game with Tim Bontemps saying, "Oh, I'm just walking to my hotel. I'll be fine." And then Knicks fans let him hear about picking the Boston Celtics to win that series. It's just absolutely electric to see that city get a taste of basketball royalty again. Obviously, I mentioned the first time they're back in Eastern Conference Finals since the year they went and placed the Spurs in the finals. I think they get it done. My heart tells me they get it done. My head tells me that the Indiana Pacers are the better basketball team right now. But I'm going to go with heart. Take the Knicks. I want to see the Knicks and Timberwolves, the battle of that trade, face it out for an NBA title. Two franchises, which out of all four of these teams in the conference finals, the Knicks are the only one in their current state to have ever won a title, and that was all the way back in 1973. The Pacers have never done it, the Wolves have never done it, and the Thunder, as the Oklahoma City Thunder, have never did it. The Sonics did it way back in the day, but the Knicks are the only team that have won a title out of these four teams, and so it's going to be really exciting to see whether it's Halliburton, whether it's Brunson, whether it's Gilgeous-Alexander, Ant. We're going to have a new superstar in the league get their first title. We're going to see a team that either has never won a title or hadn't won it in almost 60 years get a chance to win a title. This is good for basketball. Obviously, we've had our dialogue about the new CBA and how it affects teams. I think it's great to have the parity in the league that we have now. Seven different champions in 7 different years. First time in NBA history that's happened. It's incredibly exciting to see the new wave of the NBA start to make a name for themselves in the playoffs. And I think with the way that the league is set up right now, that's only going to continue to happen. There's going to be some new teams on the rise, while some of these teams are going to have to make hard roster decisions. So I'm going to take the Knicks to knock off the Pacers, set up for a Wolves Knicks NBA Finals. So that's going to be where I think it's going to go. It should be two fun series and a fun finals, regardless of who gets in it. Um, but as we talk about the CBA, we can't have a podcast in this time of the year without brand new Giannis Antetokounmpo news. Chris Haynes put out a tweet last night, one of his Haynes briefs. This was at like 10:30 last night, saying the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be meeting with Giannis Antetokounmpo this week to discuss the future. Apparently, according to Chris Haynes, this was the first contact that they have had with Giannis, which is definitely conflicts some reports that we've had in recent weeks. But according to him, this is the first time that they will get a chance to sit down and speak about the direction. Obviously, this comes after the draft lottery and after some recent news in terms of teams that maybe are going to be in the look for star talent this offseason. Interesting to see this news. And then the troll that Giannis has been on social media really the last several years goes on and has a Q&A after this news gets dropped on Twitter saying just answering just the most random questions from favorite music to cities that he likes to travel to. Just it's going to be drama filled in terms of trade speculation and in terms of what we're going to get out of these two playoff series. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah, the Giannis news is going to be. I think he wants to be sort of in the headlines for as long as he can here, and he's making full use out of it. A guy from Greece gets into this American social media landscape, and he's having the time of his life there on Twitter. And I think the most likely thing is somehow they convince him to stay. Although I don't necessarily I don't think that they're capable of winning a championship again, given how their roster is. I mean, Brooke Lopez is going to be a free agent, and he's in his late 30s. Bobby Portis is going to be a free agent. He's not a spring chicken young guy either. And you're going to have Dame out the whole next year. He's nearing his mid to late 30s. Not a lot of young guys and not a lot of young guys on their team that have a lot of talent, um, comparatively speaking to some of these other teams. And then they have no draft capital on top of that. So they just have little to no future. If they want, we've talked about it before. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but if you're going to trade Giannis, this is the time to do it as far as what you're going to get back. So if I, it's a really tough spot to be in because you don't want to give up. You don't want the Luka Doncic sort of feel around your franchise after you trade a guy like that. But if you're looking at it with these new rules and stuff, CBA and apron rules and all that jazz, then this is the smartest thing to do for the Bucks organization and even for Giannis if he truly cares about entering, if he really wants to get into that top 10 all-time conversation, he's going to have to go win some more championships. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it seems to me like he does deep down, he does care about what his legacy is going to be, and we're going to see. And um, I mean, who knows? I think this thing takes 5 to 10 more turns before we get to a final answer. With the most likely thing being that he stays, although he's going to use the heck out of being the talk of the media landscape here.
It's hard to convince a franchise, a fan base, to the idea of trading a star player. We saw it with what happened with the Mavericks and Luka Doncic. The only way that I see it possible that they would trade him is if he flat out comes out and says, I demand a trade. Now, with that being said, their best option, regardless, at this point, would be to trade Giannis, and it's their best interest to have as many teams involved in this process as possible so they maximize the return. You're going to have the team that Giannis goes to if the trade does occur, but you're going to want this to be a multi-team deal. If you're the Bucks, you're going to want Pelicans, you're going to want Portland. Those are the two teams that have majority of your draft picks moving forward. You're going to want them involved in some way, shape, or form to try to maximize what you're getting back, to try to maximize your future in terms of getting your own picks back. But like you said, there's going to be so many different turns. We're going to hear news coming out, obviously, of this meeting. We might not even get concrete answer then. There might be multiple meetings between the two. If I'm the Bucks, I'm saying, hey, look, this might be the best time. We know you're a Milwaukee legend. We don't want the fan base to turn on you. We want to put your jersey up in the rafters for what you've done for this organization. But just whatever you do, don't make this go public. Don't turn this into a circus. Don't demand that you go to this short list of teams because that loses all leverage for the organization. They're going to say, hey, if you want to be traded, we will accommodate it, but let's keep this private But in today's world, it's almost impossible to do. But this is what they're going to say. They're going to say, let's keep this private. We will accommodate you getting you to at least one of the organizations that you want to go to, but we just have to do our best not for this to become a public back and forth. And it's a positive sign that the two teams are, or the two sides are meeting likely in public, so, or in private together, but they're meeting together in one spot. It's not like a phone call or anything like that. They're coming together and meeting. Um, so I think we're going to have a better sense of where this is going to go after this week, but I don't think we're anywhere near the end, obviously, as they still do not quite have the understanding of what they're going to do. And I would imagine with everybody being at the combine last week, if they were to trade Giannis, they already have an idea of what packages are out there, who the potential buyers are. Everything like that will already have likely at least begun to become a conversation just because of the potential. But I don't think we're anywhere close to this being resolved. And obviously, there's about a month left until the NBA draft. So they've got plenty of time if they want to get it done before. They're obviously not going to be any rush. If they wanted to wait after, that's always a possibility. Um, but obviously, it seems like we're getting some news coming soon, and we could have a potential direction by the end of next or by the end of this week that we could kind of point toward and say, okay, this is what's happening with Giannis. And that's going to lead us into a very exciting offseason. Obviously, winding down the stretch of the playoffs here is going to be incredibly fun. We're going to have a new champion for the eighth straight year. So, exciting times in the NBA. Obviously, a lot to talk about, and we're going to continue to do so on this podcast, maybe more moving forward. Um, just a lot to look forward to overall. Is there anything that you want to kind of point towards as we're wrapping up here about this week coming up, the playoffs, the off season, such things like that?
Yeah, man, just what an exciting time for the NBA as the parity is, or we're getting new stars, new teams that are going to be in the finals this year. In some ways, that's really great for all fan bases to know that it's not the '60s anymore where the Celtics are winning 11 championships in a 13 or year span or whatever it was, or we don't have the Warriors sort of we're going through the whole season just making sure that they don't have an injury, and that's the only way that they wouldn't win the championship in years past. And ever since then, I mean, it's just been constantly constantly changing, and as far as who's going to hold that crown, and like you said, I'm curious, most curious to see who's going to enter that superstar club, that superstar level. I think Brunson's already there, but he really has a chance to cement himself in the NBA greats. In the definitely the I think he's already near the top of the Nick greats, but even Anthony Edwards, somebody is moving their way into either superstar, Hall of Fame, all-time NBA players here, because we could get some players in Halliburton or Edwards who even SGA is not in his 30s, so a lot of these guys are t- either in their prime or entering their prime, and they're going to get a chance to put a ring on their finger by the end of the season. And there's a lot of moving pieces, but I think that's the number one thing I'm looking forward to. And we're flip flopped here, which I think's good for the podcast. I've got the Thunder, and I've got the Pacers. But I think either way, I mean, I think I could argue that both of these series are just coin flips, and it's going to be must see every night.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's going to be back and forth. I don't think we're going to have a clear direction until the results of Game 7 of both of these series wind down. So, exciting time, like you said, a lot of stars to be superstar to be built here in this Final Four. Um, very exciting, very fun Final Four that I think is going to get some new eyes on the league. I think they're going to be intrigued by. Obviously, the Knicks are going to bring in a ton of ratings, but You got to get out and watch Anthony Edwards, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson. There's a lot of star power. Tyrese Halliburton that going to draw a lot of eyes to the league, going to get some young fans to kind of fall in love with these new superstars, and I think it's very good for the league. And look, we talked about it. The CBA is going to crush these teams eventually, and so the window to compete, is shorter than it's ever been before. So we're going to see one of these teams heartbroken and never be on the doorsteps of competing again, and we're going to see one of these teams maximize their window, secure an NBA championship before they face the inevitable, which is what the new NBA has become. But that's going to do it for episode 15 of the State Line Fast Break podcast. We appreciate all the support we've gotten up to this point. This podcast is just now getting started. We've got a lot more NBA discussions to bring you, a lot more just all sports to bring you as we get into the summer and into the fall. But that's going to be it. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and on social media, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at the State Line Fast Break Podcast. And that is us signing out.